Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to episode 16 of the lab. And today we're just going to discuss some topics that are probably more familiar to our trans community, but it should be a good one still. So, Kel, how's it going?
Oh, it's going. I have had a kind of a crazy week. I was kind of sick all week, and then I was about to leave for a trip to Cleveland to visit my girlfriend's family, and then she was gonna go play rugby. When I found out I had the COVID,
Ooh,
I took like three or four different tests during the week. They all were negative, and she's like, "Well, just take one more to be sure before we leave." We had the truck packed and everything, and of course, it was freaking positive.
oh my God.
So we just
Oh man.
unpacked everything. I'm like, well, I guess we're staying home.
That
So
super sucks though that you were like ready to go and it's just that last ditch. Okay, I'll just take one more test and then
yeah,
bam.
just take one more test. Like her dad isn't in the best of like health. He has like some heart and lung stuff, and so we just wanted to double check. And of course, just
I guess
didn't
it's
work out.
good you did double check though.
Yeah, it was definitely good that I double checked, but it was just a funny way of happening. So I've just been home all weekend. I'm feeling a lot better, but I'm just trying to play it safe. So,
Yeah,
how
cool.
are you doing?
Pretty good. Nothing really crazy to report. Nothing new. I got some cortisone shots in my shoulder. Uh, and that's been a little helpful. I still feel a little bit, but it's definitely kind of I don't feel it in day-to-day tasks, which is pretty great. I'll
Yeah.
feel it with lifting a bit, but it's duller. I don't know how long they'll last. Uh did I already talk about this at some
No, I
point?
don't think so. Well, you told me
So,
that you said that you were thinking about getting the shots, but are they supposed to how long are they supposed to last? Do you know, or is it person dependent?
he didn't say. I'm not sure. It probably is dependent, but it's not something you want to do often. So
Yeah.
even if it wears off, at least I know what it is, and it's not like dangerous. It's just basically arthritis and overuse stuff. So it's not really. There's not much I can really do besides, get older like I am. He did say it can be fixed surgically. I don't know how they do that, but it can. But it's not to that point where like I'll probably go until I can't stand it anymore before I go for that option. But it's good to know, I guess, that I have options. And the doctor this time, so he's kind of my new doctor that I had seen once before for my knee and shoulder, but it was like a whole different experience. He wasn't rushed and I didn't feel like a number. So I don't know if it's just the first appointment. He was like really in a hurry and it was just unfortunate. Because this time he took the time to go over my MRI with me, like in detail. He drew things out for me and then he did the shot the same day. And which getting a shot into your AC joint is very uncomfortable because it takes them a second to actually find it because it's such a small joint.
Uh,
So you're getting stabbed in the bone, like until he actually finds it and it goes through, because there's like just this little joint space. But found it. And so hopefully the shoulder aspect is on the mend, still doing PT for the knee. But knock on wood, I feel like it might actually be helping because it's like,
what? Hey,
yeah,
that's exciting.
I know. I'm like, I was really doubting this doctor, but at this point, I could kiss him. So,
Well, I mean, maybe he was just having an off day. We all do. So yeah, it
true.
sucks that it bled into your experience, but yeah.
Yeah, hopefully on the mend though. So, oh yeah, and then I've got a lap dog for the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's so snoozy. So
yeah,
snoozy.
but yeah. So, yep,
That's
that's
cute.
my life.
Nice. Hey, it's pretty good. It's pretty
Yeah.
good. Keep getting better, right?
Yep.
All right. So should we dive into the topic today? Got
Let's do it.
a lot of a menagerie to cover, I suppose. So
Yes,
where do
it's a
we want to
cluster.
start? Yeah, cluster. A cluster. Yes. So where do we want to start?
Good question. Uh, where do you want to start?
Well, I think we can go through the hot top. We can start with the hottest topic, I guess, in the world of in the general world. So I know, I'm sure everybody is very aware in the last year or so that trans in sport has been a really big hot topic issue. I think that was the first, other than like Rocky Horror Picture Show, the first time people really considered trans people in public, to be
Yeah.
honest, like, or other than Chris Jenner. But
Yeah. Or like Jerry Springer.
right, yeah. But I feel like right now that's the only thing that people care about right now, and which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so the I guess for people who don't know, which I don't think anybody who's listening to this podcast doesn't know, but Republicans and the right tend to have a very big issue with especially trans kids in sport. And we usually see it with female sports. So trans women in women's sports.
Yeah.
Um,
Eh,
there's
No one
like a
cares about
gazillion.
trans guys, so
No, because they think we're weak or easy to beat, I guess.
they
But
just don't know we exist. So
also true. Also true. But I know it's been a huge thing in the last year or so. Everybody there, all these different states making laws against women competing in sports and such. I think it's pretty safe to say that we disagree.
yeah,
But
it's
uh
definitely like a hot topic that I feel like is bigger than it actually is, to be real.
yeah.
Because they make it sound like there's like hundreds of like trans women specifically trying to compete in sports, and it's just like I feel like maybe there's a handful.
Yeah. Well, and it's so crazy because I've like argued before with uh different like podcasters and stuff about like trans people committing or doing sports, and like it's so silly what they want. They're like, well, they can just have their own thing. And I'm like, how many do you think there are who are very interested
Yeah,
in competing at the
yeah,
different
exactly.
levels?
It's
Like
like
you
there's
do
not enough.
there's so we're playing two people against each other. Like,
We're
I mean,
playing
come on,
one-on-one basketball,
one-on-one
like
basketball in their own leagues. And it's just crazy to me. And the other thing I think is really funny is when people will say they want us to all be in separate leagues and then like think that it's like don't see the similarities to like previous groups of people that they've picked on in the past.
yeah.
It's just crazy how people don't understand the history and like how history is just repeating itself with different players in the games, right?
Yeah. And like I think it can like potentially or just in general, like it can be kind of hard thing to navigate depending on the individual. I feel like it's hard to make like sweeping generalizations about anything, whether it's like
Right.
no one can compete or like everyone can compete. Like it's not that simple.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like trying to simplify it is what causes the most issue.
Yeah. I know my girlfriend for plays in rugby, and it's like semi-professional like women's rugby, and they have rules just like any other sport would about well, not just like every other sport, but their rules about like trans people competing is just they have to be on 1 year at steady hormone level either direction. It doesn't really matter. They have like specifics, but they like have a set point at which they have to like even out essentially um on whatever gender they're trying to compete with. And it's just the idea is to make it fair for everybody, but
Yeah.
at least they allow it, I suppose. I mean,
Yeah. And I mean, at the same time, like, what exactly is fair? Because we're all different. Some people are more
exactly.
athletic, like, people are different. And so, yeah, what is fair, anyways?
Yeah, well, that's always my favorite when they were talking about swimmers, especially the Leah Thomas, and how all those studies that they've done on Michael Phelps and how much of a genetic freak he is. And it's just like it's everybody who's a professional athlete who's like at the top tier is not going to be fair to compete
Yeah.
in whatever thing it was. Like they're genetically different. than everybody.
Yeah.
That's how they got so good. Like, it's not just work anymore. I feel like it's just the
Hmm.
American dream taking over. Like, how
Yeah.
everybody says you can just pull yourself up by their bootstraps, and it's like that's not how it works.
No,
We've all
unfortunately.
just been brainwashed to think that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with bodybuilding. Like the guys that are in the Olympia are also genetic freaks. You don't get
Yeah.
there if you're not, unfortunately. Like I would love to think that one day I'm going to work my way up into the Olympia, but reality is that my genetics are very much so against me in many ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, something for people to definitely think twice
I,
about.
I think especially when you're thinking about professional sports, it's just like the amount of things that have to fall in place at the right time and in the right way are like so astronomically, like it would have to be like the planets are all aligning at once to make that athlete in the trajectory that they're supposed to go, because it's like your genetics have to hit, they have to have the right coaching and training, they have to have the right drive and like willingness to commit to their goals, and it all has to hit at the right age so they have the like they can like take off, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's just in any sport it's like that. It's not like you can just jump into something and just be like, this is gonna be my thing. Like it's
Yeah,
just not how it works.
no. Yeah, and I think it's when people have issues, especially with say like younger trans women, for example, they have issue with them playing sports with other girls, but people forget that we used to play co-ed up until a certain age. Like we never were just strictly boys and girls. At least I, played
Yeah, well, like
co-ed.
soccer and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, soccer, baseball, basketball, like
T-ball. Yeah.
it was all co-ed up until a certain age. And they're making a big deal about it now. And it's just like you realize that's how it's always been. Like, I guess once you get, to high school or whatever, but a lot of these trans women who are trying to compete in high school sports and stuff, like they didn't even go through male puberty. Like they
Right. Yeah.
transitioned really young. So it's like literally it's a non-issue.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is like I think people have like altered expectations. Like no one, like very few people who are in high school sports are going to do anything with that. They're not even probably going to go to college and play those sports. It's
Yeah.
like, let's be honest. Like we just binged Stranger Things because I literally have nothing to do this weekend. And I was talking, I'm like, whose athletes looked like this in high school, like with six packs and like jacked. And I'm like, our best athletes at my high school had like a beer belly. Like, I don't, I mean, I know I'm older, but come on. Like,
Yeah.
I think the best athlete in my high school, and so I went to a high school, I had a graduating class about 400. The best athlete in my high school went to OSU as a kicker on football, and he dropped out after his freshman year. Like we did not like we and I know I'm just one high school, but like come on, people. You're most likely not gonna be an NBA star. So I
Yeah.
don't really understand how even if a trans woman is very good at her sport, like you're probably not crushing the dreams of too many.
Oh, yeah. It's like I think people take high school sports a little too seriously, but like, say it's even a team sport. Say you have like a trans person on your basketball team. It's only one person. It's a team sport. How much can this person really do? So, for example, I went to a small Christian school, but for some reason they were fucking obsessed with women's basketball, and we had this dad who was obsessed with making our women's basketball team like the best basketball team in the state or whatever. So he started recruiting people and paying their tuition. And he
Yeah,
found this girl.
rich dad, huh?
She was 6'11". No fucking like seriously 6'11". And so he recruited her to come play for our school, and she did, but she was fucking tall, but I'm sorry, she sucked. Like coordination was not there. So it's just like, even if you like, I know she wasn't trans or anything, but I'm saying like, if that's the argument, you're like, oh, like this trans woman's like towering over the rest of them. It's like, that really doesn't matter. Is she even good? Like,
Yeah.
let's look at everything else. Is the coordination there? Is there skill? Like, there's so many factors that play into someone who's competing in any sport.
Well, and then the other thing that we want to look at is like, especially for school sports, like that teaches you so much more than the actual sport. And it's something that me and you have talked about many times with bodybuilding. It's not necessarily about having the best body in the world, but it's like the journey, right? And like the leadership skills you get from sports, especially in school, leadership and teamwork and being responsible and time management. Like you get so much more out of being, especially in team sports, but in sports in general, there's so many more benefits and you learn so much more than just a sport. Right. And so the, or like working with people that you don't necessarily like, or like there's just so much that you get out of sports. Like I was in sports my whole life, and
Yeah,
I think
same.
I would be a very different person if I didn't have those
Yeah.
um back when I was growing up. So I think it's just a real shame um and unfair.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like
I'm obviously preaching
sports.
to the choir, but
No, yeah, I'm just like sports literally like shaped who I am, I feel like. And
exactly.
without them, man, it would have been miserable because I feel like that was my escape. Like that's how I even fucking got to whatever point in my life, because if I didn't have that, my life would be so much worse. So I feel like everyone deserves a chance at that type of like discipline and structure and team, like team camaraderie, community. So it's really sad if that's taken away from someone, especially at a young age when there's like, whether it's middle school, high school, whatever. I feel like that's really sad that someone would try to take that from basically, a child. So that's fucked up.
Yeah, it's just fucked up on so many different levels and in so many different aspects, because it's like there's just so much hate out there against the trans community right now, and it's just like to start taking away that, as well as healthcare, like you're just taking away so much from a kid. It's just like why like what's the purpose, what's the point? It's
Yeah.
like, why are
Yeah.
grown people picking on children? It just doesn't seem really very right.
Yeah. And there's, I mean, I'm sure you are aware, there's a really big push about, not letting kids transition under the age of
Mhm.
18, which, like, to a certain extent, I can kind of like understand both sides in a sense, because it's like, yeah, you're a kid, you don't know who you are yet. Like, you're kind of just figuring yourself out. But if I could have transitioned earlier, I would have been so stoked. Like, if that
Yeah.
was an option for me, my life would look so different.
Mhm.
But it's like, will some, kids make the mistake of transitioning because they just didn't know who they are yet? Possibly, yes, that's happened, unfortunately, and it's kind of a growing number that is happening, and that's why it's like such a topic right now. But at the same time, just, it's that sweeping generalization of like, you just can't do that because it's very individual. You have to assess the person individually. So just making sweeping laws of making it completely illegal for everybody, I feel like that's just never ever the answer. Do I think that we should still have things in place for kids to be going to therapy and making sure they are getting the right mental health treatment? Yes. But do I think we need to like take it off the table and like make them wait? No, because there's also some permanent things that happen when they do have to wait, and then that's more surgeries or just yeah, just a whole lifelong permanent thing. So it's like the argument is, a lot of things with transition, it's a permanent thing, and it's really risky. And what if they decide it was a mistake? But it's like there's also permanent things that happen if you do nothing. So I don't know the answer.
Well, I don't like, I think that I just love the idea that they could do like the hormone, like the puberty blockers, because it just seems
Yeah,
like such a perfect
I would have
answer
wanted that
to,
so bad.
but it just seems like such a perfect answer to the issue, because it's like they're just a pause button essentially, and it's just like that is wonderful. It just buys you time essentially to like figure the fuck out,
Yeah.
and it's not really permanent. Like I've seen a lot of studies. There's no effects if you just stop. Like you just go back to your normal puberty, and it's like, yeah, you might be delayed, but
Yeah.
and they said some about like bone density possibly, but it's just like I mean, I would have loved that. Like,
Yeah. I would have given
stop
up some
boobs.
bone density.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I'll drink milk all damn day. Give me that. I mean,
Seriously. Yeah. So I think it's just one of those things that like people who have no experience, they're obviously they're like not trans, or they don't have an experience with trans people, are the ones that are first to talk on these issues. So that is the most frustrating thing, because conservatives in general are the people who like to talk about it the most, but you don't ever see them actually engaging with trans people and having conversations with them, when they often say like they're the more tolerant, they're more open to having communication. But I'm like, cool, but why aren't you doing that?
Right. And I think a lot of that comes to like where the other generation. I know we were talking a little bit about this before we pushed the record, but I think every time they just pick a group that they know exists but don't know any personally. And it's like that Brene Brown thing of you can't hate up close. And it's just like so hard to know. Like once you know someone, like honest, like personally, it's
Yeah.
really hard to hate them once you have that face, right? Like, and it's like you realize they're a human who has
Yeah.
a family and people and
Mhm.
is a person with a life. And it's a lot easier when they're far away and you can generalize and stereotype.
Yeah.
So it's easier if you don't know them. And I think
Yeah.
that's why it's such a target for conservatives right now.
Yeah.
Um, which is, I think, one of the reasons that me and you want to be so visible and out there is just the more people know that we're just normal
Mhm.
people who want to be nerds about bodybuilding. It's a little bit harder to kind of understand, like to hate us. And it's
Yeah.
just, I know when I first came out as trans, one of the reasons I did when I did was because I didn't know any trans people who had like a job. Like that was like my thing. Like I didn't know any trans people who were just like normal people who went to work every day and
Mhm.
wanted a house and to go to the grocery store. They were
Right.
always like really like people like who were like influencers or like who I couldn't really see had a job and had like GoFundMe's all the time. And I'm not knocking any of that. It's just like not something like I'm not an extroverted person. Like I'm just someone who just wants to stay in my lane and do my thing.
Yeah.
And that's always who I've been. So it was really hard for me for a really long time because I didn't want to be like that other that just out and like wearing rainbows all the time. That's just not my personality.
Same. Yeah, like part of me has that personality that wants to be more aggressive with the visibility, but there's also another part of me that's just like, I want my visibility to just be who I am, and I'm not generally like a rainbow wearing type of person. So
Yeah.
unless it's like pride, and
Right.
sure, I'll get into it or something. But
We
um
all have celebrated holidays that we have to celebrate.
yeah, so hey, but yeah, it's just really easy to like dehumanize people from a distance via the internet. And I think that's a lot of what is happening. And I know for me personally in my life, like I grew up religious. I know a lot of conservative people. Most of my inner circle was, conservative Christian that voted for Trump. And like they don't hate me. It's one of those things where uh previously they just had a lot of misconceptions, but once they like start to get to know you, or they just know you in general, you start seeing them realize that they've kind of basically just made a lot of assumptions. So I enjoy kind of being a bridge to that gap sometimes. So like I'm not bothered by hanging around with people who I know probably whether they know it or not, voted against my rights in a sense. Because like I'm like, I know it's not personal, but I would like to make it personal in like allowing them to know a trans person and seeing if they can kind of I can get in there a little bit, pull at their heartstrings or something, and just like make being trans human, because I feel like they just don't put two and two together and realize like there are humans behind this topic, behind these like arguments over pronouns, or transitioning surgeries and children and sports and stuff. It's just not as simple as they would like to think it.
Yeah, like and I think I used to have some people in my life who would say that they hated Pride, like the parades and stuff, like when Pride Festival was happening, because they're like, I don't want every straight person in my life to think that that's what I am. Like out there and like naked, like dancing and getting drunk because they just wanted to be taken more seriously, and
Yeah.
I could understand that to an extent, because yes, I want to be taken seriously as like a professional and all that jazz, but I think it's also um it's kind of it's like the same way people think that like all athletes are like dumb, right? Like
Mhm.
everybody has stereotypes, and it's just like no one wants to be pigeonholed to that. And I think that's a very obvious thing once people like widen the lens on it. And I was in this project with a photographer here in town, the Trans Visibility Project, which was kind of funny because I feel like I had a very different take to a lot of the people who were in it. I walked with him on Pride this year, and it was really fun. I was super happy. It was one of the best decisions I made to do. But they asked me in the process, I was like, "What does being visible mean to you?" And they're like, and I simply said, "I'm like, I just want people to it just to be another thing that I am. I don't want like because I don't want to be known as like that trans person,
Mhm.
Kel. I want to be
Yeah.
known to Kel. He's also happens to be trans, but I want that to be way further down the list.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I think that's kind of what you're saying as well. Like we're not ashamed of being trans. We're not saying that it's something to be ashamed of. We're proud of the fact, right? But like I think that there's so much more to us and everybody in the community. Like um
Yeah.
and I think sometimes people forget that. They just want to see this scary person who wants to be crazy. I honestly don't know what
Yeah. Like,
they're so
what
scared of, but they're very scared.
yeah, I was like, okay. Yeah, I was just thinking like, what are they exactly afraid of? But yeah, that's exactly how I see it. I'm just like, literally, I am trans. Like that's just a fact, right?
Yeah,
That's not who I am. I'm Cody. So
yeah,
like I'm Cody and I also happen to be trans. I'm a bodybuilder. I am a cook, like there's all these different aspects to me. And I would just, yeah, my visibility is just being like a person who has a trans experience and
yeah.
whatever.
Well, and I think that's what and we have a couple more like fitness related topics, but I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but I think that that was like one thing that social media did that was like amazing because right, social media has a lot of downsides that I think people like to spotlight a lot, and like everybody's like, oh, I freaking hate social media. It spreads so much hate and stuff, and I think that that can be true, but I think the one thing is that it's been so great for the queer community
Mhm.
just because like it's brought so many people together and like
Yes.
realize that they weren't alone, like we met on Instagram.
Yeah.
I think I've met a lot of people on Instagram through this, and that like you find so much solace and understanding and like community, and like that like we're in different places. Like you're in California, but you're from what it sounds like you're kind of in redneck California, and
I am.
I'm in a place that most people think is redneck, but is a little bit more liberal where I'm actually at. But it's just kind of funny because you can connect with people and like find that solace and that community and that love and support, and it's not like in real life really,
Yeah.
like it's virtual, but
Yeah.
it works. I don't, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's just so wonderful, I think, in so many ways how social media has been able to help people.
Yeah. I feel like social media kind of just saved me
Mhm.
because, basically I was mute my most of my life. Like, I mean, I was very quiet. I didn't really uh try. I like if the internet doesn't exist at this point, I would literally like I don't even know. But I came out over the internet. Like I wrote a blog and that's how that all it was very helpful in that sense and it felt safer because I could kind of like there was a screen there so I could
Yeah,
still show people um my thoughts and how I felt about things, but then also yeah, the connection that I made and where I didn't feel so alone, and then also helped me see what was possible as far as transitioning goes, because like pre-internet days the only experience I had was, Jerry Springer, or like maybe like tidbits of Oprah, or like some other random show on TLC that was about a trans person, but probably not still in the best light. Um, or I think there was a documentary about some German guy who transitioned. I forget his name. He's probably still around, but uh, that was kind of like what kind of got things rolling, but I still didn't know the possibilities. But then as like YouTube developed and all that stuff, there was you would see people's actual like transition and stuff, and then you were like, wow, that you can actually transition and live your life as who you are. And then that made it like possible and helped me move forward, and helped me realize, who I was. And so yeah, I don't know, the internet can have its downsides, but it also has really positive sides to it.
Yeah, and I think it especially when you're talking about like marginalized folks, it just is like that lifeline, just like you said. Like it's that lifeline to understanding that there's more to what is in your physical environment. And I think it does help so many people, especially like kids these days. Oh God, that made me sound so old.
Especially like kids these days. I remember
They're
back in
kids
my
these
day, we only
days.
had MySpace.
We all learned how to code.
And we chose the worst songs for our profiles.
And then ranked our friends.
Oh God, yeah. We were pretty cutthroat as well.
That's so
Oh
funny.
shit. Yikes.
But I think we did want to touch on a little bit is about like newly or just recently coming out trans people and learning how to go to the gym and like kind of work in fitness. So it's a little bit of a veer to the right, but was it hard for you when you first came out and like started trying to get into fitness, like with that F to M anxiety?
Um Honestly, to be real, like slightly, but it wasn't as bad. I feel like I was doing CrossFit at the time when I started my transition, but it was probably harder at work than it was at CrossFit. Because yeah, generally the people at CrossFit were supportive. It only started getting weird or more anxiety provoking when I was kind of in that middle space where like you pass sometimes you don't, and then like there's new people that come in, you don't know how they're going to perceive you, and I'm already very socially anxious, so that's when it got really hard. But by the time I got into like a gym, I was post histo, so I was already pretty comfortable in passing. So I think the hardest, well, we didn't have locker rooms in the gym that I went to. It was just single stall restroom. So I didn't have to navigate that. Even when I was at work, they had single stall restrooms up until like after I had valoplasty. Some reason they switched to gendered restrooms. And so that was awkward because I was female previously. And then I had to pee next to some people that like knew me as female. And that was very strange. Yeah, I don't recommend that, but so navigating the locker room stuff is still a little bit anxiety provoking, especially if you have to change and or shower. But I'm probably a bad person to ask because I will avoid that at all costs. I've not showered at my gym.
Yeah, like so I transitioned when I was doing CrossFit too, so that wasn't a really big deal. Because like in CrossFit you don't like there was no I've never seen a CrossFit gym with showers, but
Yeah.
then and I similar to you, I was like super supportive people. They didn't really give a fuck.
Yeah.
But I was traveling all the time for work at that time, and the worst part of that was freaking TSA when you're transitioning was awful. And because
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't understand really how the spinny thing that you go through in the TSA, you know how like the thing
Body
that you
scan?
stand up and go like
Oh
this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't understand really how it reads, but every time if I was wearing a binder, my chest would go off and they had to feel me up every single time. And I was traveling probably 3 out of 4 weeks of the year or out of the month. And so it was like all the time. And I just remember TSA was terrible. The worst
Oh,
TSA experience I ever had was in Fresno, California, which I was shocked by.
well,
But
Fresno, man. I'm not
I was
shocked,
like,
but
California, come on, people. But
yeah.
that was the worst. But um, but the gyms were fine. And then when I started going to regular gyms, it was awkward it was awkward for me for a long time. I passed really well, but I was just terrified of like changing because I've always had to go to the gym right after work. So I was always changing. So that was pretty terrible. But then I eventually just realized that guys don't like look at other guys
Yeah,
ever at the
yeah,
gym. No one really gives a fuck except for the
yeah,
old men who walk around completely naked for some
yep,
reason.
yeah.
It's always
That's
old men.
yeah. And even then, like you don't even look like some guy could be walking around that didn't have a dick, but like, well, you just wish they didn't. Your eyes immediately look away, is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. Like you
Yes,
see
yes.
it for a second, and you're like, whoa.
Didn't want to see that.
So I assume everyone is the same way.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
feel like if not, it's more of like a thing on them, like why are you staring?
Right.
So yeah, like I had to change like change for the first time in my gym. I think it was Monday, like had
Oh
changed the
wow.
underwear and everything. And I set my bag down on a bench. There was no one in there to start. And then I start getting all my stuff together and like changed my shirt, so I was moving down to the bottom part, and then some other guy came in and like moved to like a bench across from me, and I was like, fuck. Because there was a mirror behind me too, so it's like he could be looking in the mirror, he could, like, there's so many ways that he could see. So um like I am post bottom surgery, but still, like it's a little different, so it's not hard to distinguish it some if you're looking hard enough. So I moved to another bench kind of behind the lockers, like around the corner. But then I looked and there's a fucking mirror, so you can still see me. And so it's just like there was no escaping. So I just had to do it as fast as I could. I like pulled my shirt down, like it was
Oh
gonna be a
yeah.
dress, and then pulled the underwear off and on, and I was fine. But it's nerve-wracking still,
Yeah.
because you don't really, I mean, it's kind of like how we say we don't want to be different. We don't want anyone to realize the differences in those circumstances. We just
Right.
want to do what we need to do and get out.
Yeah, and I mean, I've always been like that. Like even in like school, like in girls' locker rooms, I never wanted anybody to see. I've never been one of those like naked people.
Me
Um,
either.
so like I've always been like clothed. I've showered in the gym a couple times. And like we have a double curtain situation, so I've never felt like really weirded out by that or anything. I think it's just like trying to just and so my way of doing it, or at least the way I process it in my head, is like if I just feel like pretend I'm confident, no one will notice. And like, and so I'm
That's
just like, that's
yeah.
the way I do a lot of things. And so it's like fake confidence, but it's like fake it till you make it kind of thing. I don't know. It
Yeah.
works for me. So,
I mean,
uh,
honestly, that's probably the best advice.
I don't know. Like, because sometimes I feel like that fake confidence is just enough that like if you just like gaslighting people, it's like gaslighting for good. I
Well,
don't know.
yeah, I mean, if you're going confident into anything, it's less likely that someone's going to question you. Like if you go
That's what
in
I
like kind of
figure.
timid, like looking around, then people are
People
going
are
to be
gonna be
like,
like, "Why is that guy so timid?"
yeah, exactly. It's like if you don't look confident, they're going to start questioning things.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I don't know. Like we got that white guy passing thing now, so we might as well try.
Yeah, yeah. I've the only weird experience I've had at the gym is, someone started talking to me about trans stuff, but didn't know I was trans. So that was very strange.
Happened before too.
You're like, wow, you picked the wrong person.
Right. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think I think that's my biggest piece of advice to someone who has anxiety about the being trans in the gym, or it really being trans in general. Just fake it till you make it, and kind of just go with it as much confidence as you can, even if you have to fake the confidence.
Yeah, and just one thing to remind yourself too is like, keep telling you like you belong there just as much as anyone else. You're not, it's not that you're causing any harm, you're not doing anything bad. It is not a bad thing. I feel like that's something that um I tell myself, like I deserve to be here. Literally, I'm not doing anything wrong and whatever. I'm just gonna do my thing just like everyone else. And if anyone has a problem with that, most likely that's their issue. And I have a feeling, nowadays, depending where you are, um, it if someone has a problem with you, it's probably gonna be you probably have more people supporting you than you do like being assholes. So also if you have a friend, you can have a buddy system or
Mhm.
bring some support with you.
Yeah, and back on to your point is especially at the gym environment, everybody's paying the same damn money to be there. So like you have just as much right to anything as a bodybuilder that is at like a big ass bodybuilder at a gym. So like everybody's equal. It's
Yeah.
just kind of like the thing that you have to go with.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
it's not like we're going in there being like these machines are transphobic. Let's not go here. It's like you're just going in like any other human. Everything
Yep.
is for we're all
The same,
very much
everybody's there for the same purpose.
yes. So and we're all humans. We all need to exercise. And I feel like people should just respect that.
Yep, I agree. I agree. And then I think the other suggestion or questions we kind of got is like, how do you stay motivated when the world is so scary and anxiety producing? or, yeah, anxiety inducing.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
think that's gonna be the same as what we always preach on.
yeah. Yeah.
Just do
Yeah,
it.
it's I get it because I I mean we both have anxiety and
Yeah.
there's thing like the world is terrifying sometimes, but I think another thing that might also be helpful is maybe take a break from the news. Like
Yeah.
take a break away from like the negativity because the news is also a business and they want people to click on things. They want to create chaos and things like that for people to invest their attention to, like your attention is basically what they're trying to get. So if you turn that off, you'll realize that in person, things are actually not that serious and it's not actually that big of a deal. So it's like taking a break from the news, nativity on the internet can also help you navigate the world a little bit, feeling less anxious.
Well, and then like one thing, and so this I have two pieces of advice. It was one is you can unfollow things and you can mute things. That helps me a lot. Um, Also remembering your mortality, and I know this is a weird way to kind of go about this, but like it, COVID might take you out, but also like a plane or like a you might get hit by a bus like stepping out. So like we don't know like everybody's gonna die at some point, and so like you just kind of have to roll with it for as long as you get to do it, and kind of have fun when you can. Do what you want to do because that's the only thing you have to do. Like, you know what I mean? Life is
Yeah,
short. Go and do what you want. Like
yeah,
chase your dreams as fast as you can. Um, Kind of live your life because that's all you have.
yeah. And yeah, it's not easy. It's like simply hard, like kind of
Yeah,
like
simply hard.
exercise is.
That's what we should
But
have put on our t-shirts.
oh yeah, simply hard. That sounds a little sexual though.
Yeah, it
Uh,
does. Yes, it does.
how are you? I'm simply hard today.
Simply hard today.
So yeah, essentially it's kind of, our brains like to create things sometimes. Like that's all anxiety is. It's
Yeah.
like I always say I'm not anxious, I'm just very creative with scenarios that my brain likes to create and they're never good. But yeah, just remembering that like, yeah, your brain's probably going to take some things and run with it and give you some examples that are not really logical. So, be safe, but don't let it control your life. Yeah, there's always risks to life, like you said. You could be hit by a car tomorrow, and that's something that my friend Alice said how she gets herself to do things is she says, I could die tomorrow. And that sounds very morbid, but that actually makes a lot of sense to me because I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, damn, if I use that concept, for everything I did, I would probably be further ahead.
So productive.
Yes.
Or not productive at all. I feel like that's a double-edged sword. Like
True.
you can
You're like, I'm gonna die tomorrow, so I'm gonna eat these bonbons and like
yeah.
what's a bonbon? Fuck.
I was just thinking, I'm like, what is a bonbon? I bet Cody knows.
I don't even know. It's just one of those like 90s thing that people used to say.
But yeah, I think just kind of taking it everything with a grain of salt is also really important. Like I think what I always say is like life is like a pie chart, so you only have like so much to spend on each thing, right? There's a certain amount of intention you have and like control you have, and you just want to funnel it into the things that you think are important, and you just have to kind of take everything with a grain of salt. Like yeah, things might be shitty now, but it could get worse or it could get better. Like there's like one thing with anxiety is that we always focus on the bad things, but we could also focus on the good things. And the wonderful thing about this is that you are in control of your mind to some extent. Like yeah, I know depression and anxiety are real things, but if you can see that you're going down a rabbit hole, just try to focus on something else. I know it's easier said than done, but all you can do is try. So
Yeah. I feel like we're like programmed to more easily see the negative than the positive. So it might take more effort to see the positive in things,
yeah,
but
definitely.
it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's evolution, right?
Yeah.
You want to know the bad things just because you can figure them out. Sorry, my chicken is done. But I think yeah, it's worth the effort, and if you can get out and do something that you love, that'll help go a long way.
Yeah, most definitely. So, yeah.
Oh, and another little good news, and I don't think I mentioned this, was that Leah Thomas, the swimmer, I don't know what made me think of this. I think good news, was nominated as Woman of the Year by UPenn. That's pretty dope. When we
Yeah.
were talking about trans women in sports, so that's pretty exciting. So I do think there are more people out there who are more accepting than there are negative people out
Yeah.
there. They just tend
Yeah.
to be quieter.
Yeah. The silent majority. Is that what they call them? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Did we have any other topics that we wanted to jam into this?
I feel like that was it, right?
I
I
think
think
that's everything.
yeah.
Yeah. We can always if you guys wanted, if we missed something or if you hear something that you wish we would have said or talked about, always message us. We can always revisit this topic.
Yeah.
Do we want to go into the power talk then?
Sure.
Okay. So I had a little thing that I wanted to talk about. I did want to say just because we were talking about the trans community in general, that I think that one thing that people forget about trans people is that we are, as a community, strong as fuck. Like, can you picture any other community who was told by the world for so long that we were wrong or sick or just incorrect and didn't belong more than us? And it's just like, and with all that and the fact that we have to pay all this money to transition and be who we really are supposed to be and still chose to do it, I think that that says a lot about each and every trans person and our community as a whole, that with how much is against us in the world, and that we still show up and still say that we are here and that we're proud of us ourselves, and we still continue to keep going with all the face of the world pushing us down. And I just wanted to mention that I think that as a community and as a people, we are strong as fuck. And that doesn't just mean in the gym, but as like strength of character and strength of perseverance. And I think just being alive and existing is such a feat in this world, that I think people just need to remember that, and remember that you can do anything if you put your mind to it, and you know that you've done so much already. And just remember that we are going to be on the right side of history, and that if you look back and see that we will overcome this, and that you're paving the way for each trans individual who's coming after you to make their lives easier. And I know that doesn't help and doesn't really feel good right now, but I think that thought in your mind will help. But with that, I have two quotes for us today. A twofer power talk.
Yes.
So my first one's from Nelson Mandela. The greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but rising every time we fail. So I like that one a lot because I think, especially in this world with our topics today, it fits in for both, right? If we fail or if we fall, have some bad news, like all those laws that are against trans people right now, it's rising up again that brings us that win, right? It's knowing that we're not going to be defeated, even if we have laws coming after us and all that jazz. And I think it fits the same way with any individual's journey. Every time we fail, as long as we get up again, that's where the glory is, right? And the next quote I have is just a Jewish proverb. It's, I ask not for a lighter burden, but broader shoulders. And I like that, especially in the bodybuilding sense. But I think it's pretty cool just to say that I don't need anything lighter. I don't need an easier fight. I just need to be stronger. And I think that should really light some fires. And I really like that one. I had never heard that until I started doing some research. So cool. That's what I got for us today. So we had kind of a bummer episode, but I think there's a lot of fire that can be lit from that. So
yeah, and like just to add some more flames to the fire, it's like look how far we've come, like rather quickly. I paid for my top surgery, and like now, like that's becoming more and more rare that someone has to actually pay, like insurance won't cover it and stuff. So it's just like we've made so many steps forward. We've been like in way different places before and still survived. So like I'm confident that we're still here, able to fight for whatever happens. So of course it could be scary, but also don't underestimate us. Don't underestimate how strong we are and how powerful we can actually be, and maybe that's why people are so scared of us.
Yeah, hey, maybe that is why, huh? I like that. That's a good one. All right, well, till next time, y'all, have a good one.
Peace out.